Hey, this is the Crusader Kings 3 Beginner's Guide for 2025. If you've just picked up CK3 and you're a new player, or if you're confused about a lot of stuff like I was at first, this is the video for you, with no mods and with no DLC. None of these. In this guide, I'll be starting as my favorite character, Duchess Matilda of Tuscany, and using her to go from a duchess to the Queen of Italy, just to give you as good a feel for the game as possible. So if you want to follow along, we're gonna start a new game. Make sure that we're in 1066 and in this sort of middle bracket over here. And Duchess Matilda is right over here. Let's start the game. Now that we're loaded into the game, the first thing we're met with is an event. These show up in the middle of the screen and they're basically the storytelling portion of CK3. Whenever something happens to your character, whenever there's like a thing where you're interacting with the game world or your character is sort of doing something, most of the time it'll show up here as an event. And this is where the real like RPG element of CK3 comes about, like all the story and all the different options that you can pick as a result. This is a unique one for the Matilda start. There's some historical context here, but she just doesn't really like this guy. And we have a few different options to deal with it, including murdering him if we want to. The option I'm going to go for is just avoiding him until the day I die, if you want to follow along. With that, now we can kind of get started with a normal game. The first place I always want you to go to at the start of every single game is this section right up here. This section is called the alert section. Basically, it'll tell you whenever you need to be aware of something that you should do that either prevents game over or just, you know, helps if it helps you a lot. So make sure to always be checking in on this section. Not like you necessarily have to do everything that it's warning you about, but it's good to know. Starting from the left, the first thing we're told about is no player error. In this game, when your dynasty dies, you game over. If you're playing with the Roads to Power DLC, even if you lose all of your land, you can still play as an adventurer. But if your dynasty dies, that's when you die. So what you always want to make sure is that you always have a dynasty, just someone in your dynasty who's alive, who can inherit, and who you can play as. Basically, just get married, have kids. That's what it's letting us know. The second one up here is telling us to choose a lifestyle. A lifestyle gets you perks over time. It's sort of like your experience education. If you think in real life you have something that you do over time that you get better and better at, this is sort of the equivalent of that in this game. There's a lot of different options for what sort of lifestyles you can pick. It really depends on what sort of game you're trying to go for and the skills of your character. The easiest thing to do is just to take the scholarship focus and to work our way down the scholar perk tree. Really, you can pick any sort of option, but one that I'm looking forward to is the Sanction Loopholes perk, which lets us buy claims with piety. Piety is just another currency that you have along with your monthly income, your prestige, piety, and renown. Don't worry too much about them specifically yet. They're just types of currencies, basically. So after you pick a perk, the last one left is telling us that we're not married and you have no spouse, which, if you'll remember, is the solution to this other one of no player heir. Because as soon as we marry someone, we will start having kids with them, assuming we like them and they're not, you know, infertile or whatever. You can sort of pick whoever makes sense. I'm just gonna go for Pietro Filero over here. The one thing you need to make sure when you're marrying someone as Duchess Matilda is that you set it to matrilineal, as was the case historically. Normally you'd inherit the dynasty of your father, but if it's matrilineal, then you inherit the dynasty of your mother. So that means that if you had a kid without it being matrilineal, your dynasty wouldn't pass on to your kid, if that makes sense. Like, they would be of a different dynasty, of their father's dynasty. By default, it's on if you're finding a spouse as a woman. Just make sure that it's on. And the game will warn you about it too, just in case you forget it. So now we have our marriage set up. And then finally, there's this last one with a number 8 on it. This panel is pretty useful. It'll help you navigate the menu. Even if you know where you're going, I still check it all the time just to know what's going on. It looks like a lot, but you don't really need to pay attention to all of it, at least not all at once. So if we go through these, I'm not going to worry about employing a court physician yet. I will ask my head of faith for gold. Basically, you just go to the Pope. You're like, can I have some money? Thank you. You can station a men-at-arms regiment. This is something kind of new. Stationing your men-at-arms, you do by clicking on these little pre-built men-at-arms that Matilda already has over here. They have different stats, different effects. The only thing I want you to do is just click the little recycling bin icon over there and just place them anywhere and try to get the most numbers out of them. Just stationing these in any holding will increase the stats of your units. You can make sure you're getting some more benefit out of them for when we go to war later on. And then for the rest of these, I'm just gonna ignore them for now. Yeah, so I can just close this, close that, and now we can unpause the game and let time tick by a bit. All right, so our marriage has gone through and we've received our money from the Pope. One more thing is that we're being invited to the Council of the Holy Roman Empire. Even if you're planning on doing something like murdering your liege, it gives you more leverage. It's just generally a good thing to do. The thing I think is useful about playing as Matilda is you're a really powerful character who has a lot of land, and if you click around all of your little provinces, you can see which ones you own, which ones are owned by other people, which ones are owned by counts. It's just a great way to see it for yourself visually. Also, if you zoom out, you can see the entire Holy Roman Empire, which you are a small part of as a duchess. Now, there's a few other things I want to point your attention to. Number one, if you go over to Matilda at the lower left and you check over here, I don't know if you can see it very well, this icon down here. If you look at this little crown dude over here, this is your legitimacy screen. Legitimacy is pretty important, so something you want to try to think about as you're playing CK3 is how you can increase your legitimacy over time. Right now we're in between 2 and level 3. You get different effects at each level. In the base game, there's like 3 good ways to do it. You want to go on feasts, pilgrimage, but then also winning wars. Gives you a fair bit of legitimacy too. So those are sort of the 3 ways you want to think about increasing your legitimacy. Legitimacy is useful because it prevents revolts, it makes people like you more, and it gives you some pretty beneficial perks too. So at level 4, you can see how many different effects it gives us, like increased alliance acceptance, reduced casus belli costs, which is like a justification that you use for war, and just generally people like you more and things like that. So given that, the first thing I'm going to have us do is go over here to this side of the screen. If you see over here on this side of the screen, there's something called activities. And at the moment we have access to 3 activities. We can go on a feast, we can go on a hunt, or a pilgrimage. A feast is especially good for improving characters' opinion of you, especially vassals, who are characters that are counts if you're a duchy, who are under your duchy in the sort of title hierarchy. It just makes them like you more. A hunt, it can get you some prestige, which is useful since it's one of the main currencies. And a pilgrimage is useful because it can get you piety, which is another one of the main currencies. At the moment, since we're a new character, I'm going to have us hold a feast. Boop. Our capital is Florence, which is Florence over here. And before we just start the feast, I'm gonna change just a couple of the options just to make it very effective for us. So before you start a feast, if you go to other guests down here, one thing I'm gonna do is just invite all of the people I can except for rivals. Just everyone except for rivals I will include in the guests category. And then the other thing you can do while you're here is select an honorary guest from this list. A character who's very useful to get on our side is the Pope. There's a lot of reasons why. We did ask him for money at the beginning of the game, so money. And you can see his opinion of us over here. He has a positive 30 opinion of us. So if we get his opinion of us up, that means that he'll let us interact with him more. We can also ask him to excommunicate certain characters. We can have him excommunicate certain characters and say, you're not friends with God anymore. It's sort of like a smear campaign, if you want to think about it like that. The other thing that he can do is he can also give us claims, because whenever you go to war with somebody, you always need a reason to do it. And so if you have a claim from the Pope, that's as valid a reason to go to war and take a piece of land than anything else. Especially if you're a Catholic, interacting with the Pope is very important. You want to try to get him on your side if you're a Catholic. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. And by making him the honorary guest, we'll get some special options that'll hopefully let us increase our opinion with him and his opinion of us. It is sort of RNG dependent. If we're unlucky, he might actually have like a reverse reaction and like us less. But that's only if we're super unlucky. Ah, there he is already. Oh, for the wedding celebration, I'll also just take the money. I mean, you can pick the other option if you want to. I like having the money. It's useful. I'm also going to put the game at speed 4. I I think that's pretty manageable most of the time. You can close out of the screen and go back to it just by clicking the little map icon wherever you're hosting the activity. Oh my god, look at Matilda. Depending on what you need to do, you can lose stress, you can have people like you more, which might also be pretty useful. But also remember that prestige is one of the main currencies we want to accumulate. So the more prestige we have, generally the better. Someone's pulling a prank on the Emperor. Like, all of this is random. It really sort of just depends on what happens. Oh, we even got a hook on the Emperor. How fortunate. And then since we want Pope Alexander to like us, let's make sure that we just pick the option that makes him like us more. And with that, it's all done. Yeah, so feasts are really good, especially if you're a new character, if you just inherited some land. Like, vassals gain a lot of opinion of us, we gain prestige, we gain legitimacy, and we lose some stress, and also your county gets some benefits too. So there's a lot of reasons why you should basically always be having a feast if you can afford it. You can only do them once every 4 years or something. But yeah, feasts are great. It's a great way to start any game. Now, just to remind us of our goals, we own the Duchy of Tuscany. If you click on your character and then you go to your title section, you can see your primary title at the very left. So the Duchy of Tuscany is our primary title. From here, if you want to see de jure titles, think of de jure. What are the theoretical bounds of the Kingdom of Italy in this game? You can find out what they are just by clicking the Kingdom of Italy and it'll show you on the map. It'll also tell you what you need to do to create it over here. In our case, we need 7 more counties and we need 500 gold. If you ever want to see just de jure anything, you can see de jure duchy titles, de jure kingdom titles. Yeah, there's Italy. You can even see ones like Bavaria, Phrygia. It doesn't matter if anyone actually owns these or if they're sort of just theoretical. That's just sort of where they're supposed to be. And then you can also see empires. The Byzantine Empire has like Croatia and Duclasia over here. Those two it doesn't own, but theoretically it should be a part of the Byzantine Empire, if that sort of makes sense. Just to explain what de jure means a bit more. It's like the theoretical extent of it. So we own the Duchy of Tuscany. We're trying to form the Kingdom of Italy. How do we get there? Like I said earlier, we need 7 counties from the de jure Kingdom of Italy. So whether that's from this character, Lombardy, Carinthia, Apulia, Pisa, you can always check just by clicking on the title and then seeing what de jure it's a part of. We just need 7 more counties from any one of these characters. Now you might be thinking we could just look at these characters and then try declaring war on them, but if you look at a lot of these characters, we don't have a casus belli on them. Basically, we don't have a reason, a justification why we can declare war yet. There's a few different ways that us as Matilda can get claims. I'm going to tell you about a couple of them. One of them is requesting a claim. As you can guess from the cross over here, if you request a claim, this request is sent to the Pope. And you get this menu telling you if the Pope will accept or not. You can also pick different titles around here, see if maybe the acceptance chance goes up. And then if you hover over the reasons why the Pope will not accept, you can sort of see what his justification for saying no is. Base reluctance, you are a woman. The positive effects on that are that he has sinful traits, I guess deceitful, and you know, that he likes us as much as he does. So yeah, the first thing that we can try doing is looking around at all of these characters and seeing if the Pope will give us a claim on any of them. And if I remember correctly, I don't think the Pope will. I don't think he has enough good reasons to. He's pretty close here, but it's still a no for Carinthia over up here. But it makes you think that if the Pope just had a bit more reason to, he could reasonably give us a claim on the Duchy of Carinthia. Or I guess technically the one that we would want is Verona. Verona is the one that is actually in Italy. Carinthia is sort of just up here outside of Italy. So realistically, if we made the Pope like him less, then we could get a claim on here from the Pope. One of the other options we have is to go over to the right of the screen to where our council is. Yeah, our council is this little chair looking thing. It looks super uncomfortable. Yeah, the council is basically where we can see the sort of administrators of our realm. If we go over to our bishop, he has an ability to fabricate a claim on a county. The problem with this is that we only get 1 county at a time, and it takes a fair amount of time to do so. But if we wanted to try just putting him in Pisa and waiting the couple of years it'll take for him to form a claim on the Duchy of Pisa over here, we'll get a claim and maybe it'll be useful in a couple of years. So that is the second option we have. The third option we have, as I pointed out before, if we click down here just to check our lifestyle. There are different ways to get justifications through the lifestyle trees. Sanction loopholes is the one that we're going to be looking at. We may not use it for this tutorial, but if you're playing on your own past the point that we're going to play, sanction loopholes gives you a buy claim interaction, which you pay piety to buy a claim. And then there's a bunch of other ways too, like if someone's a different religion from you and they're close enough, you can holy war them. If someone should be in your like theoretical boundaries, but they're not in your de jure title, you could declare war on them to make them a part of your theoretical duchy, empire, kingdom. And there's a few others too, but I won't get into all of them right now. If you go over here into the alerts window, you can even see that the Pope would give us a couple of claims like for the Kingdom of Hungary, I guess. I'm interested in Italy. That's very random. My strategy is to get the Pope to accept a request claim on one of these characters that has enough titles to let us form the Kingdom of Italy. And then once we'll do that, we'll be a queen. You might remember from earlier that I explained if the Pope likes you, you can potentially get them to excommunicate certain characters that you're trying to smear. So if we go over here to the excommunication area, you can see that the Pope will accept by quite a bit. Pope doesn't like this guy. If we request excommunication, which he will accept for a cost of piety, of course, we're interacting with the Pope. It's the currency we use. I am most disturbed by these tales you tell of Duke Berthold's misdeeds. And then he'll be excommunicated. You can see it over here. All right, cool. And then if we pause the game again and we see if the Pope would grant us a claim, now we can see that the Pope would accept. Now the only problem is just that we don't have enough piety. So we've solved one problem and we've sort of replaced it with another, that we don't have enough piety. Now remember that piety is our resource that is right up here. Currently we have 288 of it. We could wait around forever to wait for it to come back. We could do one of the other activities I pointed out before. Again, if we go over to this trophy looking thing, if we go on a pilgrimage, one of the things that it'll give us is piety. Like we'll actually travel somewhere instead of just hosting a feast in our capital. We actually go somewhere, but one of the main things we want is piety gain. And we'll also get some legitimacy too. Yeah, we have the money. Let's just go ahead and plan a pilgrimage. Because we want to make as much piety as possible, we're going to go on a pious pilgrimage. Just for the sake of simplicity, let's just go to the Vatican at first. And then we get to interact with the travel menu a bit more. There's a few things I want to point out about traveling in this game. The most important thing you want to avoid where you can is danger. If you see any red flashing areas on the map, that means that you're going to be traveling through there and it's going to be dangerous. It just sort of increases the incidence of bad events happening that could harm your character, that could kill them. There's a few good ways to avoid it. We don't have any good caravan masters, but even a poor caravan master is better than no caravan master. So you can see that that reduces some of the danger. Also, the other thing that I want you to do is to look at the route and see where you're going to be interacting with that danger. As you can see from this area on the bottom left, there's only one location where there's high danger, and it'll tell us if you hover over it. It's because of the wetlands. Couple different options. One of them you can do is hire someone who helps you with wetlands. I believe, yeah, it's a forder. So if we hired a forder for 4 gold, you can see that it would reduce the wetlands danger, which suddenly takes away all of the danger of traveling through there. But say you didn't want to spend that 4 gold, you can also customize your route, and then instead of walking through there, you depart from Florence, you go over to Siena, and then you just sort of route your way around it, you see? So that way you just sort of avoid the danger. And then you do it the other way back too. So once you're leaving the Vatican, before crossing through there, you stop over here, you turn up here, you go over here. That led us into another medium danger. We go through there, we go through here, and we go through here. So you can do this basically holding by holding, county by county. Just sort of route your way around these dangers. The menu for it is kind of clunky, but that's the other option you have for it too. And let's just go on this pilgrimage. Basically, I'll just wait for that to happen. You want to take any events that have a chance of giving you more piety, but you can also just take whichever good options you want to. I have walked the holy path. If you see any event options that have a trait next to them and that sort of have this glowing outline, that means that you're getting a option specifically because you have a trait. I guess that's a good option. Normally it's a better option than you'd have by default. Just take a good look at those ones whenever they come up. One of the major mechanics in this game is stress. So if you see this this little head over here with the blue arrow that goes down, that means that you are losing stress. But if you see this little red icon, this means that you're gaining stress. And this can happen for a lot of reasons. You can see your character stress down here at the bottom left. Generally, you want to keep the stress low as possible. There's 3 different levels. The more stress you have, the worse it is for you. There's some strats where stress is a good thing, but generally it's a negative thing. If you have a lot of stress, the game will tell you you'll get like some negative event for it. If it keeps going up, you'll get more and more deranged events and more scary events. Generally, it's a good idea if you have stress to try to lose it. But there are times when you still want the outcome of a trait and you're willing to accept a little bit of stress. Just make sure not to go overboard with it because your character will get hurt. And then yeah, we gain some extra piety, gain some legitimacy too. The further away you go on your pilgrimage, the more piety you can gain, but that's definitely good enough for now. Now if we go back to the character that we had excommunicated, now we can request a claim. And make sure to do it not for Corintha in this case, but make sure to do it for Verona. You can sort of hover over these shields to see where they are if you're unsure. Verona is actually inside of Italy. So we want the one that's specifically inside of Italy. Let's unpause the game. The Pope agrees that it's a good idea for us to have it. Being able to take the whole duchy at once is obviously better because the duchy is in multiple counties in this area. Oh, we have a new leash. How interesting. Gottfried the Bearded is over here. And now he's mad at us, which is great. That's just one of those random things that can happen in this game, because that did not happen in my practice game. But now that we're back over here, as you can see, we don't really have enough troops to be able to fight Duke Berthold at the moment. And the reason why is because Duke Berthold has a few different alliances. Now you might be thinking that's an issue, and it very much is. If you're learning the game, you should not declare war on somebody who has more troops than you. Again, few different ways to fix it. The thing I'm going to do right now is wait to have a kid and then form an alliance. He is also inviting me to the council, which is great. One thing you can do if you're worried about characters who don't like you, especially if they're your liege, they can sort of be aggressive towards you in all sorts of different ways. One useful thing you can do is sway. So if you right click on them in the personal tree, you can sway characters, which I will do because he's my liege and I'm a little bit scared about him taking some sort of aggressive action towards me. If I want to have a kid quickly, maybe I can bribe my husband by sending him a gift. Come on, make me pregnant. And then I'll sort of just wait around for a bit and see where we are in a few months. Learning perk, remember that we're just going to go down the scholar tree. At least that's my plan. You can check things out more if you want to. Alright, so after waiting around for a bit, like I mentioned, there's a few different places we can go on pilgrimage to. So I'm just going to go on a pilgrimage to a different part of the world. The further away you go to, the longer it'll take to travel there, but the more piety you'll get from that pilgrimage. For now, I think I'll head over to Canterbury. Again, just remember what we talked about before, try not to get overwhelmed. Avoid the danger. The other thing you can do is travel through some of these different little circles you see on the map. So all these little circles give you some lifestyle experience, which is useful. Like they're literally all over the map. You do that by customizing your route just to pass through them. Having some lifestyle experience is good, especially because it lets you unlock perks, even in a lifestyle tree that's not currently the lifestyle you're going down. So if we got enough diplomacy lifestyle, we could still get a diplomacy perk, even though that's not our active lifestyle, if that makes sense. I'm also gonna head out to sea to avoid the Alps. We can even sort of go out to here, we can go through here, and then we only have some medium danger in some spots. Most of our danger is coming from traveling over the ocean, so I'm gonna hire some captains, which will alleviate a lot of our worries. There's also some more danger spots. I'm not entirely sure where they are, so I'm just gonna hire some mercenary guards. They give us like a base boost to travel safety, which is good. I'm just gonna make sure that we're taking that same path on our way back. And now you can see that we took this travel from being very dangerous to being not dangerous at all. And we'll even visit a couple of spots along the way. Make sure to just apply, and then let's just head out on another pilgrimage. The reason why we would do that, again, because we can spend that piety on other stuff. Maybe there's other characters we want to excommunicate and claim their lands, like we did with Duke Berthold over here. So I'll come back if anything interesting happens. Remember that we are forming a claim on the grand city of Pisa. You just pay a little bit of money. It's a good way of getting individual county claims. It just takes a bit, otherwise I'll just get back to you once Matilda's back. So now I'm back from pilgrimage, not much else happened. Just to check the sort of scales of power here, we have a claim that we won't really use. Who we would declare it on is simply too strong for us right now. But our counselor also formed a claim on Pisa over here, which if you take a careful look, is also de jure a part of the Kingdom of Italy. So if we declare this war, we'll be one county closer. We are a fair bit stronger. It'll give us a good chance to see what wars are like. So let's get started. Declare that war, again, because we're stronger. At the start of every war, you'll see at the lower right, this button over here, the raise all armies button, which will raise all of your armies. Yeah, this little red flag, it'll raise up all of your troops around this sort of rally point of your whole country. If you can't find it for whatever reason, if you go over here to the military section on the right, military, it looks like two crossing swords and a shield. It'll show you the rally points right down here. You can just click to select it, and then little tiny button right down here that says move rally point, that one. By clicking it, you can move it around to, I'm gonna leave it here for now actually, but just in case if you want to move it closer to where the actual enemy is, go ahead and raise up all of my troops. If you hold down control, that ensures that they won't split when you click the raise all armies button. And then if you unpause the game, they will form up in just a little bit around your rally point. We have a little checklist. You can click on your army to see the first army of Firenze. You can see who the commander is. You can see a lot of stats around here. The one thing I want you to do after clicking on the army is to click on this little like recycling icon here at the bottom left, this one. And what this icon will let you do is change who the commander is. And basically, you just want to check whenever you raise an army that you're actually using the best commander you have. Oftentimes you're not. So you can see that this commander is only rated at a commander advantage of 10. He has a commander advantage of 24. He only has a commander advantage of 10. You just want to make sure that you're picking the best person with the best commander advantage. By default, they're at the top of the list. You can get into the weeds of it, but just pick the best one you have. And once you have that, you can sort of just run after their army. And then if you see this little plus icon down here and you hover over it, if the game thinks you'll win, normally you'll win. Don't rely on it 100%. The game explains that it thinks you have a better army commander, more commander traits, more soldiers. And I just know from looking at this that we'll win. We have twice the soldiers, we have a good commander. Also, just make sure that you're not fighting them in mountains or any other territory that gives them a lot of advantage. This battle, totally fine. Basically, every war is a series of battles and sieging out territory. What we're gonna do right now is have a battle. Yep, it'll go through its battle phase. After we win, it'll give us a certain amount of war score, but there is a certain maximum amount of war score that we can get from battles won. So the other way that we can get war score, and normally you'll need 100% war score to enforce demands and get what you want. The other way that you can get war score is by occupying holdings. So you siege them out, you take control of them, basically just by parking your army there for a while and waiting for the siege to tick down. And the other way is by capturing important people as prisoners. If we can capture the main person behind a war, that'll immediately give us 100% war score. Like, we have the person who owns the title in our prison, and so if we had him in jail, we could basically tell him, you need to give us your land to get released from jail. And they always accept at that point. Also, if you take their kids captive or any of their other family members or anyone else who's just sort of important to them, you can get some additional war score here and there. How sieges work: you park your army somewhere, it'll give you this little progress bar. Depending on your commander, depending on your army, it'll take a certain amount of time. Ooh, a second battle. How nice. Yeah, and you can see from that battle we got a fair bit more war score, and now we're capped out on war score from battles. And then basically you just wait for it to tick down until you take the whole territory. Alright, good news. I am pregnant, which means that finally I'll be able to have a kid. And we have enough war score to win this war. One thing I would check before clicking the enforce demands button, just as a rule of thumb, is if you go over here to your courtiers menu, it's this one with all of the little people. It's just characters in your court who you can interact with over here. If you go over to courtiers, there's these 3 sub tabs over here. There's court positions, your courtiers, prisoners. Before you end a war, I want you to go over here to the prisoners tab. And the reason why is because sometimes you'll have important people in your prison who you have held in your captivity who you can ransom for a certain amount of money. So we can ransom the Dogeressa for a bit of extra money. Oh, and for the rest of you, it's only weak favors. And then we can also negotiate release. It's like, say for example, this is a good character that we want to keep. We can recruit him. Or if he's kind of just useless, we can just sort of gain a weak hook. Not really super useful for us right now. Are you a decent character? You're fine, but not good enough that I would want to keep. So we'll just release him. And once again, you're not very good. So I'll just kind of gain a weak hook and negotiate your release. And then just unpause for a bit, let that happen. And there you go. So after checking that and getting a bit of extra money, now we can enforce demands. And you'll see that along with gaining a county, that'll help us form the Kingdom of Italy, we'll also gain some legitimacy and some fame. Fame is just equivalent to your prestige, basically. All right. So now we have 1 extra county that we won through war. I'm just going to disband our armies over here. And if we look up at the alerts section, we do have a lot more alerts. Because we have a disease going on, we can enter seclusion. We can also isolate the capital. If you ever want to see what plagues are going on, go down here to the bottom right to this little mousy thing. It'll show you which plagues are around here and are causing issues. Gottfried's pox. You can see it's a smallpox. So I'm just going to kind of ignore those for now. Doesn't seem like a big deal to me. Minor plague. The third option we have over here is the game letting us know that we're above our domain limit. Because we took an extra county and we're above our domain limit, which you can always see our domain limit by checking up here in the top right, which is affected by various things, including our tech, also how much stewardship we have, and a few other things too, like including how good our spouse is. Once we get over that limit, like once we're above the 6 out of 6, you basically just want to give 1 of your titles away. And the game does let us know when this is the case. For me, I'm just going to give away Pisa. If you click on it and you see this, that's just because you clicked somewhere that isn't a holding. If you want to interact between the different holdings in each of these provinces, you can click on these little tabs down here. This is the bishopric. This is just an empty holding. And this is the city of Pisa. I will make sure to give this away to someone. There's also a penalty for holding a city as a feudal leader for complicated reasons. I won't get into it. I'm just going to click this button up here, which generates a random noble of the Italian culture. And now we have Podesta Ugo of Pisa. Decent character, doesn't matter too much. The one thing that matters is now that we gave it away, it went from being one of our possessions to being Ugo's possession and him being a vassal underneath us. So it's still part of our realm. It's not directly a part of our domain anymore. Someone else is managing it for us. Feudalism is basically middle management. So now he's a part of our hierarchy. And now we're 1 county closer to being able to form the Kingdom of Italy, which is decent progress. So now we have 1 more county and we're still aiming to form the Kingdom of Italy. We have a claim on a duchy over here, which again, he's a little too strong for us to fight right now. One way that we can make ourselves a bit stronger is by going over to our military screen. We've seen this screen before. And if we go over to our men-at-arms, if you remember how we stationed them before by clicking over here, we can just increase their size to get more troops. Depending on the type of troops you build, you can even build more men-at-arms and see what sort of effects they have. There's a sort of complicated rock, paper, scissors going on with men-at-arms. But if you want to spend the money that we have just getting more troops, you know, you can just increase the size of all of them. Normally you wouldn't spend all of your money like that, but we're getting enough money at this point to where I feel pretty comfortable for it. Oh, and I can ask my head of faith for gold. Good timing. Strictly not necessary, but it will help. So right now I'm just gonna see what else we can do to increase our strength. And also I'm gonna keep an eye on where else we could get claims in the Kingdom of Italy. But you can still work on fabricating claims on individual counties. And if you're extra lucky, there is a chance they can get you a claim on the entire duchy. So just since I don't see any other way to attack Lombardy yet, I'm going to to form a claim more to see if we can get a claim on their duchy and be lucky. One thing I am going to see is if there's any sort of alliance I could get for my daughter, which does grant us as her mother an alliance with whoever we marry her off to. So if you just kind of look at these little shields at the bottom, you can see that if we married my daughter to this character, the shivering son of Duke William the Conqueror, England lost to Norway. That's hilarious. All right, well, William the Conqueror is attacking an extension of Norway now, which was once known as England. But yeah, you'll see that we can marry her off to get an alliance. I would say try to avoid any alliances currently at war or who look like they could be at war. So Hungary is a good option because you're not at war. Denmark is in 2 different losing wars, so I don't think that's a good idea. Because they might just call you into their wars and then it'd be really annoying. We could get one with Robert the Fox of Apulia, and basically if we call them into our wars, we'll get an extra 2,000 troops to add to our 3,000 troops, which makes a difference. I'm gonna go for Prince Salman of Hungary. I feel like this is a good alliance to get, and she is 0 years old, so we can always break the betrothal if we really need to. If you have more kids at this point, you can marry off more of them to get more alliances. A couple things I can do right now. I am going to continue checking to see if I can excommunicate this character, and barring that, I am going to be going on a pilgrimage. And after that, I'm going to host a feast. This time, I'm going to take a pilgrimage all the way over to Jerusalem. So same as before, just make sure you're not getting yourself into danger. You're traveling along safe lines. I will say that a low chance of danger is pretty safe. Just try to avoid it to a reasonable amount. Again, you can travel to all these different sorts of places if you want to. Having piety is generally really good if you're playing as Matilda. All right, my bishop actually rolled a rare chance to form a claim on the entirety of Lombardy. It is quite fortunate. The thing I would have done if this wasn't an option would have just been to wait to see if he has more claims, wait to see if I can get strong enough to fight Carintha. It looks like I just rolled luckily enough. So I will take this option to take Lombardy. Different types of RNG can affect your game in different ways. In my test run, I was able to excommunicate the Duke of Lombardy, and then I was able to also request a claim from the Pope that way. And if none of those worked, we could have just waited around for our scholarship perk tree to go all the way down to sanction loopholes and then buy a claim. So those are the other options that we have. We kind of just, you gotta play it where it lies. Really Coptic? Okay. Now that we have a claim on Lombardy, it's actually, wow, that was quick. So now that we have a claim on Lombardy, we can see that he is a fair bit weaker than the Duke of Carintha. And we can also check the Duchy of Lombardy to see just how many titles are inside of it. And once we take Lombardy, we will have more than enough counties to be able to form. So just the same as before, this is a bigger war, but we are definitely stronger. We have some allies, and even on our own, we should be able to win this war. I'm going to go ahead and declare this war. Same as before, wars are just sieges and battles. And if you make sure they don't siege out your capital, you siege out their capital and some other provinces and win battles where you can win wars pretty simply. Also make sure if you have an alliance to call them in. You can do that through the situation menu, and it'll just let you know that you can call them in. Not strictly necessary for this war, but it is going to be very useful. So once again, just make sure to use the best commander you have to take reasonably safe battles, like ones that don't give them a huge advantage or anything, and then just press your advantage from there and siege out some territory and win the war. Alright, so there's our battle against someone who looks like a child. And then I'm gonna go directly and siege out their capital. It looks like we captured some important character by capturing your son. So win this war quite easily. Very fortunate. Looks like we won't even need our ally. Still good to have though, just for security. Looks like you're currently in the middle of a war of your own. I guess I'll help you out with that. So that's the risk of having allies, is that you might need to support them in their wars. But now that we've won our war, we can pretty safely take the Duchy of Lombardy. Generally, you don't want to decline joining an ally war, because if you decline joining a war, then you take a fame penalty. It's a lot easier to just agree to join the war, and then they will get upset if you don't help them with your troops, but you can help them with some money or something like that. So now once we have enough money, we'll be able to form the Kingdom of Italy. In this situation, what I'm going to do is wait around until we can ask the Pope for more money and then form the Kingdom of Italy. Now it's been a few few months, I can ask my head of faith for a bit more gold. Thank you, Pope Alexander. And now if we go over here to the Kingdom of Italy, now I can create title, and it costs 500 gold. And just like that, now we are the Queen of Italy. Matilda is a pretty powerful character. And with that, that's where I'll leave this tutorial. I hope that helps you sort of have a feeling of how to play CK3. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope it helps.